Great. So welcome everyone. Thank you again for coming to our North Suffolk Zero Carbon Action Plan public forum. My name is Sasha Scheideroff and I'm with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and I will be going through tonight's presentation with you all. In terms of Zoom guidelines, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you would like to rename yourself, please do so. And then we do encourage you to turn on the video during the discussion portion if you're able to. You can use the chat feature in your Zoom platform for questions and comments as we go along. And please mute yourself when not speaking. And then you may also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to speak during the discussion phase for the facilitator to call on you. And welcome. So as we get started, tonight's agenda, we will have in just a few short moments a few welcome remarks from our municipalities. And then we will go through a short presentation about the North Suffolk Zero Carbon Action Plan, the ZCAP, and then go into our breakout group discussions and then close out for the evening by 7 o'clock. So if you would, in the chat, please introduce yourself. If you can write in your name, your preferred pronouns, and where you live, particularly if you're a resident of Chelsea, Revere, or Winthrop, we would love for you to introduce yourself as we get started. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce the folks from our municipal partners to give a warm welcome. So first, I'd like to introduce Alex Train, the Director of Housing and Community Development for City of Chelsea, Tom Skwararski, the Chief Planning and Community Development Office for City of Revere, and Ibrahim Lopez Hernandez, the Sustainability Manager for the North Suffolk Office of Sustainability and Resilience. So I think I will pass it over to Alex first.
Great, thank you, Sasha. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Alex Train. I serve as the Director of Housing and Community Development for the City of Chelsea. Our department is lucky to host the North Suffolk Office of Resilience and Sustainability, regional collaborative effort with Winthrop and Revere, designed to tackle some of the most pressing issues confronting our region as we look at climate change and sustainability. So I want to preface this by thanking our team here, Ibrahim Lopez Hernandez, Bianca Mercado, Sasha, Gloria, and the team at the MAPC, as well as Devin at Green Roots for their tremendous effort on this project. We're tremendously excited to kick this off with you all tonight. So the overarching objective of this effort regionally is to identify major consumers of energy and polluters throughout the region and craft a blueprint that the communities of Chelsea, Revere, and Winthrop can use as a roadmap to tackle those pollution sources, improve air quality, and ensure that our clean energy future that we're heading into is equitable for everyone, meaning that our most vulnerable residents in Chelsea, Revere, and Winthrop can realize the economic and environmental benefits of clean energy, and that investments geared around eliminating pollution, especially carbon emissions, happen first and foremost in environmental justice communities before other more affluent communities. And so tonight you'll see an overview of the planning process. Throughout the course of this effort, we're seeking to both provide community education opportunities concerning sustainability, carbon emissions, and air pollution, as well as empower residents to work collectively with us to launch local initiatives, craft policy that can actively reduce pollution, and collectively advocate at the state level for policy and regulatory changes that could dramatically enhance the sustainability of our communities. And so this is a effort that's funded through the Division of Local Services Regionalization and Efficiency Grant Program. So we're extremely grateful for this funding opportunity that they've provided, and we're excited to be embarking on this with our team and the community in order to devise this roadmap that we hope will benefit future generations to come. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Tom, who's the Chief of Planning with the City of Revere.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Tom Skorowski, Chief of Planning and Community Development for the City of Revere. Really excited to be here tonight and hear about the important work that's happening with our ZCAP plan. Reducing our carbon footprint is certainly a priority for everyone everywhere. But I think in the communities that we're in here in Chelsea, Revere, and Winthrop, it's particularly urgent work that we're doing. Thinking of Revere specifically, we've got 3 miles of coastline, we've got thousands of acres of wetlands, and all of this really creates an existential crisis with climate change and the challenges that we face. But at the same time, a lot of the development that you see in the city of Revere, and really the design of the city at large, was designed as a place to maximize our carbon footprint. You look at roads like Route 1, 1A, Route 60, Revere Beach Parkway, these major roadways that have separated neighborhoods, have polluted our air, and ultimately impeded our ability to create connected, walkable, and healthy neighborhoods. So this work is extremely important and urgent, but it's also very difficult. It's going to be a challenge that's going to require policy, systems, and environmental change. And that's why I'm so fortunate we have this group here this evening to talk with you about what those solutions are going to be like. But ultimately, implementing this work is very, very tough, but it's easier to do it when we know we're not going it alone. And to that end, we're really grateful to have MAPC here to really lead the charge with this work, because ultimately this needs to have a regional lens with the work that we're doing. I feel grateful to have the support of the city of Chelsea, the town of Winthrop, certainly Elle Baker on my end for the city of Revere, who's been leading the charge here locally, but also everyone here at the table this evening and moving forward with this work, because it's going to take a collective effort to get us to where we need to be. So I appreciate you all being here, looking forward to a fruitful discussion on these really important topics. And I will hand things over to Ibrahim.
Thank you, Tom. Hi, everybody. My name is Ibrahim Lopez Hernandez. I am the Sustainability Manager with the North Suffolk Office of Resilience and Sustainability. I don't want to go around the same words and great statements from Alex and Tom, but I just want to say that we're very excited that alongside MAPC, Green Roots, and other team members here, we are reaching a point where we'll be devising a plan that will guide the 3 municipalities on how to reach net zero. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as well as the nation, is moving towards reaching this important goal in order to reduce our carbon footprint. There will be a slide talking about some of the other projects that the office, alongside Daria Mattis, my co-worker here at the office, that we're conducting and leading. But there's also other initiatives to gain the momentum on this plan, such as a freight study to understand how our communities can decarbonize our important networks for transferring goods, as well as an EV charging plan that will be kicking off in the near future to also try to accelerate our electrification of vehicles, where transportation is a very important sector here in the North Suffolk region in terms of carbon emissions. So with that, I'll pass it to Sasha. Thank you, everybody.
Great, thank you. Thank you all to Alex, Tom, and Ibrahim. So again, I'm Sasha Scheideroff. I'm a senior clean energy and climate planner at MAPC, and I'm joined tonight by my colleagues Francelis Morello Suarez and Gloria Huang Pu. We've been working on this project together for quite some time. So just a little bit of background about MAPC. We're the regional planning agency that serves Greater Metro Boston. So we work with 101 cities and towns across the region on a variety of planning and policy support. And we have been working with the North Suffolk region over the past year or so on developing the Zero Carbon Action Plan. So I'm just going to go through a quick presentation about the planning process to date. This is our sort of second large public forum that we've had. So many of you have probably been engaged in some of our previous forums and activities as well. So what is the Zero Carbon Action Plan? So our ZCAP is our region-wide plan to reduce carbon pollution and other GHG emissions so that we can lower communities' impact on climate change. As many of you know, the energy that we use in our to electrify and heat and cool our buildings or get around via cars and other vehicles often use fossil fuels. And as we burn those fossil fuels for energy, it emits pollution like greenhouse gases and CO2, which in turn warms the planet and causes climate change. So the ZCAP is really about balancing out and reducing those emissions and reducing our impact on climate change, both locally and globally. In addition to reducing carbon emissions and the sort of global impact on climate change, we also see that there are many community benefits of reducing carbon emissions. We can help residents and businesses reduce energy use and save on energy costs. We can improve the air we breathe by reducing reliance on dirty fossil fuels. We can also make our community safer and easier for walking, biking, and public transit, and reduce pollution in our waterways. During the ZCAP process, we also want to take an eye towards social justice and equity. So we want to think about who has been historically impacted by the fossil fuel industry and our energy systems, who will be most impacted by the types of changes to our climate that we expect to see and that we're already seeing, and then who can benefit and how will the community benefit from the different actions and strategies that we lay out in the ZCAP. So as I mentioned, we've been working on this plan for about a year now. The community engagement portion launched over the spring and summer of last year, starting with stakeholder interviews. And then in September, we launched with public forums. We had a public forum in each of the 3 communities, both opportunities in person and virtually. We attended events in terms of tabling and also did focus groups to hear from community members and stakeholders around what your vision for the region is and really understand what challenges you face related to climate and energy and what you want to see, what positive things you want to see in your community. And then this winter, we've been taking all of that feedback and input from the engagement, as well as the research and other work that we've been doing and developing the actions and strategies that we're going to go through at tonight's forum. And then moving onward from this point into the spring, we will have a community survey for additional input, and then finalizing the plan by late spring, early summer. Some of the things that we heard from residents during the initial visioning and engagement section were the need for more trees and parks and green space across the 3 communities, and improving access to quality green space. We heard a lot around air quality concerns, both from vehicle emissions, but also things like Logan Airport. Also the need for accessible and active transportation, like walking and biking, incentives for renewable energy, the need to reduce vehicle emissions and manage energy and housing and development, prepare for extreme weather, and then also the need to better coordinate individual and household actions with the actions that municipalities are taking as well. So before we get into the action plan and the draft actions, we did want to share the emissions data and just do a recap of the sources of carbon emissions across the North Suffolk. So this is an aggregated greenhouse gas inventory. So part of our project was to look at all of the local sources of emissions across the 3 communities and break them down by different sector and subsector. So in the blue, you see buildings, so residential buildings, commercial, industrial, municipal buildings, and construction. The green on the left is vehicles, and then a few other things like wastewater treatment and discharge, and other types of waste. And then also we see that percentage of building energy emissions by source of energy. So more than 50% of emissions come from burning natural gas, 35% from electricity generation and usage, and 12% from delivery fuel oils, whether it's gasoline or delivery oil. In terms of community by community, looking a little bit deeper at Revere's community-wide emissions, again, the blue are buildings. So the largest emitter are residential buildings and homes at 35.5%. And personal vehicles, passenger vehicles, make up 27.7% of emissions. So both about a third of the emissions. In Chelsea, the makeup is a little bit different, which reflects the commercial and industrial core that is the large part of Chelsea's land use. So 44.7% come from commercial and industrial buildings, and then residential homes account for 25.7% of emissions. And in Winthrop, again, sort of reflecting the predominant land use in Winthrop as a residential community, homes make up almost 50% of the community's emissions, followed by personal vehicles at 33.9%. So this is just to give you a snapshot of the emissions across the region and within the communities as we think about how do we address these emissions, reduce them, and what strategies and actions will be most impactful. As Ibrahim mentioned, there are a lot of existing efforts across the 3 communities and region-wide. The North Suffolk Office of Resilience and Sustainability was developed in 2020 as a regional office to coordinate across the 3 communities and really collaborate. So there are a couple projects going on right now, like the Mass Save Community First Partnership that some of you may be involved with, which is working with residents and businesses to reduce energy and reduce energy usage. And then a few of these others that Ibrahim mentioned, about to launch a regional EV strategy strategic plan. And then there's an ongoing study right now to think about how to reduce emissions from freight. And of course, Chelsea, Revere, and Winthrop have also been doing many projects to reduce energy usage, emissions, as well as prepare for the impacts of climate change. So this last section before we get into our discussion group is about the focus areas that the ZCAP will have. So in the ZCAP plan, we will have 6 different focus areas or sectors that help lay out the strategies and actions for either local action, whether it's something that a municipality, one of the cities or the town can do on their own, or a regional action where all 3 can work on it together. And then there's also some actions that may require advocacy for state policy or broader regional focus as well. So our 6 focus areas, I'm going to go through them now. So the first one is energy and buildings. This focus area, the goal is to reduce carbon pollution from energy generation and usage. So whether it's for electricity, heating, or cooling, including reducing energy, switching to clean energy sources like solar, wind, or geothermal. When you look at the regional emissions, both from residential buildings as well as commercial and industrial buildings makes up 65.5% of the regional emissions. This focus area includes actions such as updating zoning and permitting, reducing energy utility costs and focusing on energy efficiency, exploring and enabling funding and financing for renewable energy and deep energy retrofits. And then the fourth one is supporting local and regional workforce development in the clean energy economy. The second focus area is mobility and transportation. Again, thinking about the emissions, the current emissions, vehicles and transportation make up 32.3% of regional emissions across the 3 communities. And that includes like passenger vehicles, but also public transit. So the goal in this area is to reduce carbon pollution and other emissions from transportation through strategies like lowering single occupancy passenger vehicles, increasing access to public transportation, improving safe routes for walking and biking, and then changing and transitioning vehicles to electric vehicles. There's a lot of text. I'm not going to go read through all of it, but we will get into some of this a little bit deeper in the discussion groups. Again, some of the actions under this focus area include things like working on regional electric vehicle strategy, advocating and collaborating with the MBTA, developing neighborhood and community-wide plans to improve safety and convenience for pedestrians walking and bicycling. And then also the fourth recommendation is establishing a regional air pollution control commission and coordinating with relevant state agencies. The third focus area is waste. So waste makes up a fairly small portion of the regional emissions, at only 0.5% of the emissions. However, some of this emissions data is really hard to get without doing a deeper waste audit. So the goal in this is to reduce carbon pollution from how our waste is processed and disposed of, including recycling, composting, and other strategies. So there's a few pieces in here around composting and recycling, particularly textile recycling, and then also some state policy pieces around advocating for extender producer responsibility and advocating for adoption of technologies to reduce emissions from waste incinerators. The fourth focus area is open space and green space. So the goal of this is to use natural environment, open space, and green infrastructure to reduce emissions and provide additional co-benefits, such as access to open space recreation, improvements to air quality, water quality, and resilience to extreme weather events. So under this, the 5 actions, there are actions around reducing urban heat island impacts, actions around ensuring that communities have access to parks and sort of within a conducting a 10-minute walk assessment to identify priority areas for improved open space, and increasing urban tree canopy and maintaining existing urban trees, and identifying opportunities for things like pocket parks or community gardens. We have 2 more, so almost last. Focus area number 5 is our municipal lead by example. Municipal operations make up 2.2% of regional emissions, but these are areas where municipalities have direct control over municipal buildings, public schools, and fleet vehicles. So a lot of these actions include things like ensuring that new municipal facilities and schools are highly efficient buildings, implementing projects to retrofit existing buildings and reduce energy usage, installing renewable energy and solar on public facilities, and adopting electric vehicles for a municipal fleet, as well as transitioning to electric school buses. And the last focus area, collaborative governance and community engagement. The goal is to ensure that the people and communities most impacted by climate change and carbon pollution are collaborative partners in developing solutions and centered in decision-making. So this last focus area starts to get a little bit into implementation of the plan. So thinking about what types of task forces or subcommittees might be needed, both locally and regionally, to advise on implementing the plan, thinking through things like access to public meetings, whether it's translation and interpretation, or thinking about timing and transportation or childcare support if it's an in-person event, as well as some other ideas around things like establishing a climate ambassadors or community core program to help do outreach and education around climate, and then coordinating with existing collaboratives like the North Suffolk Public Health Collaborative, as well as regional coalitions such as the Metro Mayor's Climate Task Force or Resilient Mystic Collaborative. So before we get into breakouts, I know that was a lot of information, and thank you, Francelli's, because we're a little bit over time. So I think this next section of our forum is going to be in our small breakout groups. So we will have an opportunity to dig into these different focus areas and provide feedback and input on at least 4 out of 6 of the areas tonight. And so